The national championship game is coming up in just a few days. Monday, it's a noon kickoff time. Is that noon Eastern, Corey? Is that noon out
Yeah,
there?
probably. I mean, because the game's in Durham, I would assume that is a noon Eastern.
Noon Eastern, and we have NAIA Football Championship game coming up on Monday. Hey, I'm Joey McWilliams. Glad that you are with us here on Midwest Sports Net, joined by Corey and James tonight. And we are going to preview the national championship game. We've been talking NAIA football all season long, even prior to the season on our respective channels, even on this channel a time or two. So welcome on in, and please let us know from where you are watching. Let us know in the live chat tonight. I'd appreciate that. Even if you're watching the follow-up, if you're watching this on demand, well, go ahead and go to the comment section and let us know from where you are watching. Gentlemen, it is Northwestern. It is Kaiser, and I think we've talked about this once before. Oh, wait, that was 12 months ago. We have a rematch in the championship game. So, Corey, did you see this coming?
Yes and no. Look, Northwestern put on an absolute masterclass performance on Saturday of a level that we haven't seen them play at throughout the entirety of the playoffs. They took a Georgetown team that I had a lot of respect for and whipped them on offense, whipped them on defense, and whipped them on special teams. I mean, yeah, after that, yeah, you've earned it.
Definitely. And by the way, I'll stay with you for just a second longer, Corey, because Kaiser is closer to your neck of the woods than either James or me. And man, that's just been a team that's been on a roll, and really their only NAIA loss coming last year against this Northwestern team. It seemed like they were in a position to make the run that they did.
Yeah, absolutely. They scheduled a little better this year than they did last year, with only having played Valdosta State and Mississippi College this year instead of having the game also against Lindenwood. But it was a 3-point loss against Mississippi College at home against a D2 team. You roll through the rest of your schedule pretty easily. Now, St. Thomas fans aren't going to like to hear me say that, but I mean that game was close late, but it's also St. Thomas, a team that was in the playoffs. Guys, the Sun Conference is no slouches over here.
No question. And by the way, I'll tell you something else about that Mississippi College game. You note that Kaiser was on the road both times at Valdosta. Fantastic. Valdosta State. I'm sure you've been up there, seen that place. It is an incredible city. It's an incredible facility. And Kaiser had to go on the road both times. They played the Choctaws at Kaiser. That was at West Palm Beach this time around, keeping that game. So I like that it was a home and home series with those two schools, that they were able to get a D2 school to come in there to West Palm Beach. Although we're talking about going to West Palm Beach. I mean, come on. That would be a fun trip, especially to open the season. So, James, did you see a rematch coming?
I really didn't. I knew Kaiser was good, and I knew that win against Drake meant they were going to do something good. That win against Drake, a team that was first in their league, I was like, okay, this team, they only lose to D1 teams in Northwestern. Apparently that's the MO for them the last 2 years. And I was definitely a little bit higher on some of the other teams in the playoffs. But Kaiser has just played with a chip on their shoulder the last 2 years. No, everyone goes, oh, the good NAIA teams. You got to go up to the Midwest. You got to go to Montana. That's where the classically the good schools have come from. But they have just proven everyone wrong. You go back to when the Mid-South was actually split into 3 leagues. I don't know what they called it then, when they had Bluegrass, Appalachian, and the Sun. And it was like, oh, Kaiser's just buried down there. But since they've kind of split that off, you have Lindsey Wilson winning a title. Kaiser's been here twice. You have to take that southeast side of the United States seriously now.
I think you're exactly right. I think the Mid-South, which we'll talk about some conferences a little bit later on, but I think the Mid-South was a conference that really has had a lot to speak of, and definitely the southern portion of the country. And as Corey said, the Sun Conference, no slouches at all. All right, Northwestern and Kaiser. Let's go ahead and get to that. By the way, shout out to Jake Redcorn tonight. Jake, definite friend of the channel. Glad that you're able to be on with us live tonight, too. So Jake's had a lot of personal things he has to deal with taking care of wrestling now as it's gotten into wrestling season. And so he's got a lot going on. So I'm glad you're with us live tonight, Jake. Northwestern, 14-0. We'll start right there. Number one team in the country, 14-0 this year, 27 consecutive wins. And Jalen Gramstad leading the way, 3,394 passing yards. That's third in the NAI in total passing yards, only 127 behind Joaquin Collazo, by the way. And I would be shocked if he was held to less than 127 yards in the championship game. Connor McQuillan, 94.1 yards rushing per game, 20 rushing touchdowns, got some All-American attention as well. And then Michael Story, nearly 100 receiving yards a game, 16 receiving touchdowns. He has the career mark now at Northwestern. We're talking about offense alone. James, you look at those numbers, and you have to say, just like you said, Northwestern, a team you probably thought they were going to be there.
Yeah, and you really look at how Northwestern, how they've just beaten teams. I mean, I think they've given up 27 points this postseason total. I mean, it's just brutal. And this offense, so it's just the defense side of the ball. Offensively, though, we talk about Gromstad. Obviously, when you throw for 3,000 yards, having 1,000-yard receivers, not out of the question. But how about Gromstad, 8 rushing touchdowns? He's getting it done. Just passing, rushing, he's scary. And, the NAI, I feel like, is built very much on run the ball, stop the run. And when you have a guy who could throw for 3,000 yards and also run for 800 yards or whatever it is now, whatever he's up to, it just seems impossible to beat them. Kaiser absolutely has the work cut out for them on Saturday.
By the way, shout out to Mike, who I know is a fan of Kaiser. Michael Brooks, we'll get to Kaiser here in just a moment. Corey, I left out a line as I was just reading through those numbers, and I don't know how I could do that with Jalen's numbers. Not only the 3,394 passing yards total, averaging 242 per game, pretty solid, 14th in the NAI. Yeah. As James mentioned, 8 rushing touchdowns to go with 33 passing touchdowns, so 41 total on the year in total offense perspective, which is right up there near his numbers last year. But this number stands out to me. 70.1% completion percentage, tops in the NAI. That is a huge number.
That is absolutely massive. And it's just added another element to his game. Last year, he was a good dual threat quarterback. Now, he is a much better passer. And we've seen him be stuffed a little bit in the running game in this postseason. Stuffed or maybe saved, I'm not sure at this point, but there's so many possibilities to the Northwestern offense. The Kaiser defense is going to have to stop it just via penetration. That's the only way you're going to be able to disrupt that offense, is just at the snap.
And you talk about that too, because it really has been, it's just been effective. And what he's done, I had the opportunity to get this week, guys, to get to visit with both coaches again. Yeah. And fantastic visits both. Really appreciate both of them as gentlemen and what they're doing with their programs. But one of the things that Coach McCarty mentioned about Jalen Gramstad was that he's matured in his game, and I think that's just evident from what he's doing. Felt like maybe he had to do some things on instinct last year, but man, he's got good instincts to be able to do what he did. And if he is maturing in that way, wow, that's big time. That it's just that much more for Northwestern to be able to get to this point. So my other question then, well, one of my other questions, the coach, and I'll stay with you on this one, Corey. Northwestern's they've had the target on their back all season long. Is the target that much bigger now because you're taking on a team that you kept from a national championship last year?
I don't know that it's that much bigger. I think that this Kaiser squad this year kind of will have its bearings about it. I mean, the first time in every stage kind of gets you a little too hyped sometimes. Your first time in the playoffs, your first time in a national championship game. Now now you've been there, now you understand the rhythm of the week, even though it's a little bit different this year. But you understand how that goes. I don't know that the target is bigger for Kaiser to hit on Northwestern. I think Kaiser will be better mentally prepared for the game, though.
And James, you also mentioned this. I want to go back to that defense just for a second longer because, I heard growing up, maybe you guys heard this growing up. It was something I always heard growing, and I realize I'm older than both of you. Not combined, not combined, but still older than both of you in that sense. But, offense wins games, but defense wins championships. This Northwestern team, as much as we talk about, and you say that about those Morningside teams in recent years too. I mean, their offense, because they put up about 1,000 points a game, that their defense got overlooked, and it was a fantastic defense. And I think that's something you could say even about Northwestern, James, because this is a defense that's already pitched a shutout in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, in the NAI, giving up 0 points in the playoffs just really shows how well built your unit is, how everyone is just clicking on all cylinders, the chemistry. And for Northwestern, obviously, they haven't lost since week 1 of last season, and I believe that was like a 1-point loss. Like, I mean, maybe if not, it was 3 points. I mean, it was...
No, it was 30-29.
Yeah, 30-29, a 1-point loss to Morningside, and you just... And I felt like at that point it was like, okay, is Northwestern going to come over the hump here? And last season, you saw them just get better and better. This season, you saw them but that defense, like you said, a shutout, just to open up the playoffs and say, no, we're here. That was not a fluke last season. And, they've got playmakers, obviously Kingery leading the team in tackles. But, I'm very curious to see how they're going to handle Kaiser this week because it's not like they haven't played great teams. They've beaten great teams in this playoffs. I mean, team in their own conference, I believe in Dort was the opener, and shut them out. So, yeah, I think Kaiser's going to give them a little bit more than what they've had this year. That does not mean they've had an easy schedule, but I think that Kaiser offense is going to be something different than what they've had to shut out so far this year.
Yeah, you mentioned Kingery, and another player that's gotten a lot of national attention too is Mosier too, leading the NAI in interceptions. Well, Corey, let's move over to Kaiser right now. Then 11-2. The only loss to an NAI team, we've said it before, it's been said ad infinitum almost in the last year, and I've seen it in my comment section as well. You probably have too. The only time they've lost to an NAI team, only once in the last 2 years, was that Northwestern game. And so, again, coming in 11-2, Bryce Beasley, no slouch with 65.6% completion percentage. That's sixth in the NAI. And one of the players that we mentioned here on this channel at the outset of the season was Jaden Meisinger. He's averaging 106.3 yards per game, ninth in the NAI, has 22 rushing touchdowns. That's third in the NAI. We thought he would be one of the top returning running backs to the NAI, and I think he has been. But midway through the year, and guys, it's almost that midpoint right there against Southeastern, another Sun Conference team, another team, by the way, no slouches as well, that Andrew Burnett decided, hey, I'm here too. It just seemed like he came out, had 3 touchdowns in that game, and it's been a two-headed rushing attack from that point. Burnett averaging 71.4 yards per game. Now, that's 40th in the NAI, but I think that number's skewed because if you take out the 6 games prior, that number goes up dramatically because he really came alive in week 7, and then 13 rushing touchdowns himself. And let me throw out a little bit more defense before I let you talk, Corey. I'm sorry. The defense giving up 21 points against an incredibly strong College of Idaho team that just came alive, really came alive in the playoffs. And then Wendell Fallord, who finds ways to score just left, right, and any other direction. So, Kaiser, initial thoughts on Kaiser, Corey?
Kaiser really does love that two-headed monster. Been trying to pull even a couple years ago. It was the combination of Marcus Burgess and Jonathan Mosley 2 years ago. With Meisinger kind of playing third fiddle. Last year it was Burgess and Meisinger. They always seem to have a pair. And this is definitely your traditional thunder and lightning pair. Meisinger, 5'8", $182. Andrew Burnett, 6'2", 225. Don't let him hit you; he'll go right through you. But if you're Northwestern, wow, look at me with the Freudian slip of Morningside. If you're Northwestern, you've got to figure out how your linebackers are going to stop the run and not get pulled too far in to go over the head with DeAndre Golden there at tight end, going through the seam and really splitting your defense in half.
When you've talked about the run game, you were mentioning, James, a little bit earlier about that run game, and we see in the comment section it might rain. Corey, yeah. Let me ask you really quickly. The forecast, I'm sure you have that in front of, or at least you know what it's going to be because you're going to be there. And Michael, by the way, is going to the game as well too. Mm-hmm. So maybe y'all get to hook up there. But what's the forecast really quickly?
Looks like it's going to be a high of 56 with showers in the morning, decreasing throughout the day. By noon, it's a 20% chance of rain. But early in those overnight hours, you're looking at rain. Looks like up to it's going to be about 2 inches on Sunday, and going into the overnight, that's going to be a wet field. So that's going to be really interesting to see how those run games of both Morningside and wow, listen to me again, Northwestern and Kaiser do.
Corey, this is the 2023 preview show, just to bring you up to speed. If you,
what year
you put some respect on the Red Raiders, Corey. You get it together.
They're gonna kill me for that when I get there. They're gonna get me for that. Michael's right though. Last year it was cold. It was terrible. It was like the high was in the low 40s. I was cold. I was terribly cold. Kaiser was cold. I could see it. The crazy Red Raiders fans were like, oh, no, man, this is like September for us.
So Red Raiders fans sound like Canadian, according to those from Florida. So, that's
Close
all.
enough.
All right. It's, Iowa.
But I agree, though. I think it is. I think having the high in the 50s is a huge advantage for Kaiser versus the 40s coming from, Fort Lauderdale area. I mean, South Florida. I mean, no. And they're used to rain down there in Florida. So that's not going to be anything for Kaiser. No, they're looking forward to as much rain as possible. And I don't know, both teams got 1,300-yard rushers. I mean, it's not like the teams are going to go, oh, no, can't move the ball, it's raining. Like, I don't think that's going to be it. But I think definitely making it one-dimensional could make it a good old-fashioned grudge match. And I do believe this is a grass field in Durham. It is turf?
No, it is turf. NAIA actually requires that any national championship host be a turf field.
Yeah, because they don't want to reschedule it. That would not be fun. So they can play through the rain. So, yeah. But, yeah, even so, I'd say I definitely give Kaiser the advantage on the weather, which is kind of rare for these championship games. I always feel like the northern schools have a little bit of the advantage.
Well, and it's, I mean, these are games that were played most recently, at least coming off some games in Louisiana recently. Of course, a high of 50 and rainy. That sounds like an Oklahoma Christmas day. So I mean, I'm used to getting that about this time of year. But it should be fun from a fan's perspective. Then, Corey, and shout out, by the way, thanks. Michael said all of Kaiser's seasonal games were in the rain. Shout out to Dave watching us tonight from Sioux City, I believe. So thanks for tuning in tonight, Dave. We appreciate that. From a fan's perspective and getting to see this, do you want to see a lot of running? Do you expect that then for both these teams if it does get in the rain, Corey?
I mean, it's definitely both teams' bread and butter. Kaiser with their zone running attack definitely wants to open up the passing game with the run. Northwestern with the zone read game and then trying to figure out how to make you pay for not being disciplined. Absolutely. I think that both teams are going to try to establish the run early regardless of weather conditions.
I look at the schedule again, and I'll go back to you for just a moment. And I know, Corey, we may have come to the point where Corey's camera says we're done. But
got to pay that electric bill, Corey. Come on, man.
but he'll be back. Okay,
Yeah.
James. Then let me ask you, with that in mind, this is a Kaiser team, and I'll ask you first on this. Talking about some season-defining wins along the way, and if Kaiser had won either of those D2 games, obviously that's a season-defining win. But you look back, and I think that beating St. Thomas not once but twice and doing it with authority in the playoffs, that to me was something that stood out to me for what Kaiser did. and it was the defense really, I think, that showed up. Yeah, they put a ton of points on the board, but the defense showed up and shut down St. Thomas. What stands out to you about Kaiser?
For me, I'm guessing that's not to Corey because his camera is back. No, I think the signature win for me this year was Lindsey Wilson. I've kept my eye on them. Obviously, national champions not that long ago, and we kept, like you mentioned, Kaiser's only NAIA loss has been Northwestern, and there were rumblings. This is it. They got lucky last year. That was just a lucky run, and I was looking for the Lindsey Wilson offense to come in, top 10 team to just come in and kind of hand it to them. And Kaiser held up. And to their credit, Kaiser every year they have two? I think was it last year they had like 3 losses all year long. They were all D1, D2 schools. It's like, oh, they're a 3-loss team. Do you know who they played? And so this year, can they beat the top teams in the NAIA? And all they've shown is that they can play them very well, very closely. They can do it on offense. They can do it on the defensive side of the ball. And that's why they're back to the national championship game 2 consecutive years. And who's not back to the national championship game for 2 consecutive years? Morningside, Corey. That's who's not.
That's exactly who.
Okay. All right, man. Yeah, Corey, I think you're going to eat it for that on Monday.
Absolutely.
But let me go. Let me ask you a Northwestern question then. I will pitch what I think and what do you have to say about this, because you look at, again, season defining wins for Northwestern. They're already defending national champions, so that's neither here nor there. They're going to come in. The winning streak was 13 to start the season, so anything after that, I mean, it's just going to add to that. I do think the win over Morningside was a season defining win to a point, because it was the last loss they had, and it stopped a 75-game regular season streak for the Mustangs in that, and it also stopped a conference championship streak along the way. Was there another game, or would that one be one that stands out to you, or maybe one of the playoffs where you said, okay, this is where really they've stood up and said, no, we're going to go back, we're going to take it again?
Morningside's definitely one that is defining of the season. There are a couple others there. The win against Drake at Drake, FCS Drake, now Pioneer FCS, but still FCS.
Playoff FCS.
Playoff
yeah.
FCS.
Yeah.
A 27-24 playoffs. That was absolutely huge. The other one, you talk about that Morningside game.
Yeah.
You've always got that one circled. But who was the week before but playoff team Dort? You did not overlook the defenders. You beat them 35-14. You made sure that you took care of business, that you went 1-0 that week. And for me, for a team's maturity to have 2 big impact games, Dorton and Northwestern share a Walmart. I mean, that's about as rivalry as you can get.
You make it sound very intimate too along the way. They share a Walmart. Listen, I don't want to share my Walmart with anyone. I don't want to share my Walmart with anyone. Maybe I'm just
negatory.
I have intimacy issues, I guess. Maybe that's for another broadcast. We'll keep that for another show.
Yeah,
you're right. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That was a big win. Well, okay. We'll come to the point now then, and Michael was at both games against St. Thomas, and beating them was a big win. So, Michael, a Kaiser fan. I know that Dave's a GPAC fan, and if Jake is still watching us tonight, I know he's a KCAC fan, so we're gonna have to we'll skip around that for a little bit tonight. For anyone else, by the way, please let us know from where you are watching in the live chat tonight here, as we're getting to visit with Corey from NAIA Ball, with James from Champion Sports Network, and our good friend Vince, by the way, not on the show. He is broadcasting live sports tonight, so he couldn't make it over here in this time zone, but we'll have a chance to visit with him on Saturday morning at his Phoenix radio station. So we'll talk with Vince later on. That does lead me back to one other thing before we predict, and I'll give you a chance to pick. Corey, you've already picked on your channel earlier in the week, but I'll give you a chance to either bail on that pick if you want to, or stay with it. That's fine. I know you're not going to bail on it, and we'll hear what James has to say. that does go back to something really quickly. I'm not gonna, and I know James probably thinks I'm going to, and I'm not gonna harp about rankings, not ratings, or I'm also not. I know I'm not on this show, not tonight, and I'm not. Yeah, Jake's watching. He's all about the KCAC. I'm not going to harp about the seeds tonight, okay? Because I won't. I've already said my piece for now, so it's all about the championship game. However, having said that, then if the seeds, they didn't hold true all the way through the rankings, the little numbers outside their name, they didn't hold true all the way until you got to the semifinals, and then it felt like it fell into place a little bit. And with 1 versus 4, and then 3 versus the team that beat 2, Kaiser didn't have to take the same route this year to get to the championship game. They didn't have to play Grandview. That was taken out for them with College of Idaho, which, again, not disparaging College of Idaho, but Grandview was on a tear. Grandview was doing things that were just borderline illegal. And so I mean, they were just beating people down. Yeah. And so to not have to have Grandview in there, they got to face St. Thomas, a team they'd already played. And so, was it tougher last year? I'll ask you both. Was it tougher last year, or do you just feel like Kaiser put itself in the position getting that 3 seed, and they just maybe, I don't know, I'm not going to say deserved it more, but they put themselves in a position to have an easier path?
Do you want me to rant first, or do you want James to rant
No,
first?
No, you do it, Corey.
Rant. Soapbox is yours.
Let's go.
Poll, where you start in the poll matters so much.
Yeah.
Because last year, Kaiser has everything to prove. They can't get their number up high enough to establish themselves in the top echelon of the poll before they have to go to the playoffs, and they have to take the tough road. Now, as a champion runner-up, you start with that poll inertia at number 2, number 3, in the top 5. And guess what? When you win all your NAIA games, you're going to stay in the top 5. Poll inertia is poll inertia is poll inertia. It's going to happen. It's so hard with any ranking system to be able to overcome that inertia. And so last year, I think on Kaiser was tougher because of the fact that you are having to go to these squads. This year was tough in a different way. You've got to climb the mountain from a different path, and they did it. But I think just in terms of raw toughness, last year when you're having to prove yourself was tougher.
James says, as I just briefly mentioned that he said ranking system, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I you're asking the question, was it tougher last year? Well, they had to beat, though, however you think of the seeding aside, last year they had to beat, 1, 2, 3?
1, 2, 4, actually.
1, 2, 4. Yeah, I mean, it's...
Western was number 3.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say it wasn't harder last year, especially since no one outside of South Florida thought they were going to go all the way to the championship game last year. And so I would definitely say last year. And obviously this year they have the advantage of getting to play games at home. They get the advantage of getting to play a team they've already played before. Like, these are huge, huge advantages when you're in a playoff trying to get back to the championship game. Getting to go, oh, we've already scouted this team. We already know how they play. We already know our matchups. That's an enormous advantage. So yes, definitely easier. But I don't say that in any way to discredit this team, because this is just an excellent football team on both, just front to back, both sides of the ball. But definitely, there's no comparison. Definitely a tougher road last year. I don't know if that's any easier to actually win the championship, but getting to it, definitely tougher.
I'm going to go back to this conversation when we talk about something a little bit later on, but we're nearing the 30-minute mark. So at this point, it would behoove us to, station identification. You're watching the Midwest Sports Net YouTube channel. Please subscribe, and please watch the videos as we're heading for a milestone that I hope we hit by the end of 2023. So please continue to watch the videos here. But it is time, as we look ahead, to make some picks. So, Michael backed me up on that one. 1, 2, and 4 last year. Had to travel those long distances. This is the first time either team's having to travel this year. So that's probably pretty cool for both of them. And Jake is all about the Friends Falcons setting the rushing record last year, or setting the rushing record next year. So pretty close this year. And by the way, Jake, I will say, I believe the average rushing yardage per game at 416 was a record, because I don't think anybody's beaten that in a single season. I think other than the Oklahoma Sooners back in like the year I was born.
No, you have to go back to like the Civil War to where teams were rushing for 400, 500 yards a game. Like it's ridiculous. And I'm glad
yards a game.
I'm glad you brought up Friends, because I almost just brought them a moment ago, because they are victims of poll inertia from the beginning of the season, having to work their way up. Because I think if they start the season anywhere in that 21 to 25 range, I think they might be in the playoffs this year. Mm-hmm. And a Mid-American Nazarene, I think, would also maybe have a little bit of a Coach Hansen, Coach Harrison at those schools. I think they would just die to be just to be 25th, even just a week one, even if they drop them out, just to be there, because like you said, Corey, there is not a lot of movement in the poll in the NAIA.
James, you sound like you've been listening to this channel for a while. Those are
excellent channel.
Thank you. I've been waving the towel for both of those teams all the way through. So maybe they may start out a little bit higher this year, but we'll find out. So I'll start with you, James. You're at the bottom, and you're keeping us all together. You're the foundation tonight. So give us your pick.
Well, last year I picked Northwestern, so I looked really smart, and so that will. I don't know if my streak will continue this year. Here's the bottom line in this game. Last year, first half, almost dead even. Second half, the adjustments were made by Northwestern, and that's why they won. Second half they put up, I believe, 28 points. And who's going to get the second half adjustments this year? I think Kaiser's learned a thing or two. I'm picking Kaiser to win their first national championship. Bring a trophy down to South Florida.
All right. Michael, by the way, reminding us that last year Kaiser lost the number one quarterback and number one running back for the championship game, still lost by just 10 points. So, and we know who Michael's going for, so that's fine. Jake's going with Kaiser as well. So, Corey, I watched the show on Monday, and by the way, if you don't follow NAIF ball, you should. Great weekly show on Monday evenings. He's broadcasting from out in Florida. And Corey, I'll let you take it. What do you think?
Man, this is such a hard game to predict. The teams are so well matched. Oh, look at that! You got the $4.99 super sticker. Hey, someone wants to give you $5. I'll take it, dude.
When I talk about Jake being friend of the channel, I'm not kidding. Jake is friend of the channel, so we appreciate him.
Heck yeah. The Kaiser offense is extremely good, but it can tend towards one-dimensionality. If you can stop the running game, like Northwestern was able to do with Georgetown with an excellent running back, then you're going to force Bryce Veasley to find targets other than DeAndre Golden. Once that running game shuts down, Golden is no longer open in the middle of the field. That play-action pass no longer really works as well as it could. You're going to have to find your wide receivers. For Northwestern's offense, it's a lot tougher road to hoe for a defense because you have so many options. Not only do you have your great wide receiver in Michael Story, but don't forget that Connor McQuillan out of the backfield is Northwestern's third leading receiver yardage-wise on the season with about a half dozen receiving touchdowns himself. There's a lot of things that you've got to key on and be really good constantly if you're Kaiser. The only way Kaiser's able to win this game is if they're able to control and penetrate the line of scrimmage consistently and keep Northwestern really behind the chains. I didn't see that sort of consistency against College of Idaho. They would get to Andy Peters, but then Andy Peters would get them. I think in terms of consistency, I think I got to go with Northwestern for my pick, and I'm going to take them to win the game.
Boring. Come on, where's your sense of adventure? Come on.
All right. Well, and by the way, stick around for a little while. We got a couple more things to talk about here before we go off the air. So I'll go ahead and throw my pick out there, which I don't know. It's I had a really good first round of picks. I did decent there, and then the second round did okay. Quarterfinals completely fell smooth apart in my picks, and thought about just giving up on all the Discord and all the fun picks that we do together. And then I went back to picking the home team and did all right with that pick. There is no home team here. There's just, I don't know. Kaiser may be, but okay. I'm gonna put this one up here also really quickly. Michael's throwing some shade because he didn't like when I picked Bethel over Kaiser. So there you go. That's what said when Kaiser played Bethel, and Bethel lost. But there's no home team in this one. And it's, if anything, I would say Kaiser could have a more of a home crowd, maybe a little bit closer there than Northwestern coming in. I think everything Corey said, I would echo that. And I think another thing that comes in to play here, because both coaches were very, very certain about the run game, and the run game is going to go a long way in this one. And I think so too. I also think it's going to go a long way in a game that, if it does get, a little slippery out there, that could be a challenge for either one of these quarterbacks, who, by the way, both throwing the ball better than 67%. I don't think that can be overstated either. I think that's a number that it's not getting played enough. And so I think both quarterbacks can throw the ball. Kaiser was so impressive last week in what they did to College of Idaho when College of Idaho got inside the 10-yard line. Now, granted, we know the Yotes scored points. They put 21 on the board. But time and time again, when College of Idaho got inside the 10, and three of the four times, there were 4 times they got inside the 10 that didn't score. And 3 of the 4 times, I mean, we're talking goal line stands where they stopped Schofield cold. And that didn't happen all year long. Schofield was money inside the 5-yard line, and they just shut him down. And I think that the difference here in this one is, and Michael, I just hope you still like me and come back to the channel. That's all I'm saying. I hope, Michael, that you come back to the channel, because it's not personal. I think that Northwestern will put points on the board from outside, not only outside the 10-yard line, but I think outside the red zone too. I think there are going to be some big plays that the Red Raiders are able to put up on the board. And I think the big play, 1 or 2 of them, will make a difference in this game if everything holds as it should. And I know that all things are not equal. But if all things are equal and everybody's healthy, and we want that for both sides. You want everyone to be healthy, everyone to walk off the field healthy at the end of the game, and it all be fine. I've gone back and forth on this all week, and I know Corey was saying this before we went on the air too. We've just done back and forth. But I'm going to go with Northwestern. It's boring, James. They're defending national champions. I don't want to lose a friend in Michael, but I'm going to go with Northwestern in this one. I think you can't go against the defending national champions until this point. So there we go.
Well, in our Discord pick'em that we've been doing, James has a 1-point advantage over the both of us, Joey. We gotta make sure that we get our final Jeopardy in right so we can beat each other.
That is true. And so we're not, we have to put our pick out there live. I mean, we don't get to sneak it in under the radar. We have to get it out there live. So there we go.
Yeah. Now, I mean, look, for those who don't know, there's a Discord with that NAIA ball. It's where the NAIA football fans are hanging out, and you put in your predictions. I win that thing every year, and I'm going to win it again this year. So we're just going to put that right out there. Hey, Champion Sports Network, we are willing to make bold predictions. We are willing to win, and that's what's going to happen this year.
All right. Before we're not going off the air yet, so no one thinks just because we made our pick we're going off the air. We have a couple more things to talk about. Jake's inviting everyone to Adair Austin Stadium 2 hours before the Mighty Friends Falcons kickoff. I almost guarantee you, Jake, there will be at least one Midwest Sports Saturday from Wichita in 2024. I'm just saying that's almost a guarantee, because I know that there's one I have to go to Missouri to get the William Woods football team in. There's going to be one show up there in Fulton. But yeah, we'll probably have at least two in Kansas this year. So anyway, there we go. All right. We have our picks out there. James has picked Kaiser, and Corey's picked Northwestern. I picked Northwestern. Michael still likes me anyway. So there we go. That's all right. Okay, let's talk a couple more things really quickly before we wrap it up here. And I appreciate everyone. Stick around for just a little bit longer. We won't keep you too much on this Thursday night. But I had a question, and I want to go back to something that you guys both mentioned. That is the poll inertia and some teams that you look back. I think both Friends and Mid-American Nazarene, James just taking my thunder here on the show. But I think they're both put themselves in a good position for next year, really. And they had great years this year, and they're going to bring a ton of people back. Both of them are. But they're in conferences that may not have excelled this year. Baker did get the win over Louisiana Christian, which actually shocked me. That was my one wrong pick, by the way, that week. Was that one. Then Baker loses. Grandview knocked out, I think, earlier than a lot of people thought. So I would say maybe the Heart didn't finish strong, but looking at a couple of conferences that need to improve if they're going to get any kind of preseason love to get to the postseason, I think the KCAC is one of them, and I think the Sooner Athletic Conference is one of them too. So let's talk about just really quickly, and James, we'll go with you first.
Yeah.
Are there a couple of conferences that you look at and say, hey, you've got to make something happen in the postseason before you're going to get that love, or you're going to have to make a run like Kaiser did and just beat the daylights out of teams that are higher than you are?
Yeah, I mean, let's just stay right here with this Baker Louisiana Christian matchup. I mean, the Heart, obviously this year was a lot of realignment between the Heart and the KCAC. Evangel moved over, and it's more than just football. It's several sports. The Heart has traditionally been a very strong conference, one of the strongest conferences in the NAIA. But I think right now they are a little bit down. I don't know that they are. I don't think they've lost all that stock, maybe, right? I still think they're strong. I think the Sooner Athletic Conference has a ways to go. They've put in a team every year. They compete in that first round, but since they tend to be, in the past years have been 1 through 16, they've been in that 14, 15, 16 range. They're playing 1, 2, 3, and that's tough. I mean, the top teams in the NAI are beating NCAA FCS D1 level. So it's tough for them. But I do think the new playoff format's going to help them. Teams that are in that 14 to 20 play first week. But anyway, I think Sooner has a ways to go. Louisiana Christian winning. I think Ottawa, I maybe they make a deep run, but I still would say first round, they still have to prove that the Sooner can win a game. I mean, it's been forever since, I guess, Langston's made a run. The Appalachian Athletic Conference. The Appalachian, typically it's been Reinhardt has been the team, and they just did not look great this year. They didn't have any wins that made you go, wow, this team's there. I think Georgetown was the one win I went, oh, okay, Reinhardt's here. And then they just, first round, just gone. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm not even sure who is in Appalachian that's actually going to make a playoff run besides Reinhardt even next year. It's kind of like Florida State in the ACC. They're going to have to leave the conference to get to the playoffs.
Watch it.
He's still here, by the way. He's smiling right now because his camera died.
No camera, but he's definitely here.
But he's still here.
And then I think the other one we have to address is the North Star. It is a big wild card right now. You got a couple of schools that are, I believe, either shutting down, moving to D2, and I don't even know what's happening. So I'd say those three: Sooner, Appalachian, North Star. Big question marks heading into 2024.
Okay, we'll talk about North Star here in just a second. Corey, we know you're still there. You're not shying away from James or hiding or anything, so that's fine. Your take on a conference then, other than you can mention anyone that we did as well. Was there anyone you felt like had a letdown and needed to make some adjustments?
First off, Michael, go Noles. Love it. Look, I 100% agree on the Appalachian. They and the Sooner were pretty much our two bottom teams when we did a very rudimentary conference and division ranking last year. The one that really disappointed me this year was I really had high hopes for how the KCAC had split the divisions. Boy, that was a massive disappointment. Like, oh man, you had all the fun in the Kessinger.
That's right. You could see from day one the Kessinger was going to be the dominant division, and none of the, well, I say none of them. I mean, very little evidence from the Bissell for otherwise. Go ahead.
Honestly, I know they're supposed to be rebalancing every 2 years. Honestly, I'd rebalance now. This thing is so far out of whack after year one that you've got to change it. You've got to figure out how to get that right, because 100% love to Ottawa. They did what they needed to do. They played the teams in front of them, and shocker of shockers, this National Selection Committee made the right choice. I mean, they had to because Ottawa won and those were the rules. But, no, I'm not still salty or anything.
No.
But Ottawa played the games in front of them. They won the games that they had to. They made the playoffs at 6-5. And they played a really good game against Dort. They acquitted themselves nicely. But you've got to find a better way to get your teams a little bit spread better in the KCAC.
I think, and again, I think Texas Wesleyan would have looked good in the playoffs. I think Ottawa, Arizona would have looked good in the playoffs, but you're not going to get them there until and so it was up to Louisiana Christian, who, by the way, what an incredible season finale. You have to win by 10. They get a field goal as time expires to win by 10 to eke their way into the playoffs, and they do, but it was just a tough road to hoe, and they couldn't get a gun against a Baker team that showed up in the second half of the season this year. And I think got the ghosts of 22 in the past there. I would I definitely say I think the KCAC, they need a team to get a good win. And there were a couple of wins in the past. You know, Kansas Wesleyan's win a couple of years ago came against an Indiana Wesleyan team that bowed out due to a forfeit. Mm-hmm. And there was another Kansas Wesleyan win, I believe. Someone in the KCAC beat a Hart team in the playoffs about 3 years ago, and that was a big win there. But you're going to have to get a couple more. Teams, conferences, by the way, that excelled this year, and I'll start it and see what you guys think about this. I was not, and if you're a Frontier Conference fan, cards and letters, Joey at MidwestSports.net, it's okay, because I was not on board with the Frontier. Really wasn't. I thought that 3 teams was too much. I would have put another KCAC team in there and Friends. I just would have over Montana Tech. I know it's not as egregious an error as leaving out Florida State, but I would have done it that way. Once again, those people in Kansas City did not ask my opinion. Go figure.
Go figure.
But I think the Frontier Conference made definitely, and with the run that College of Idaho had, showed themselves strong. GPAC always. And I thought the Mid-South also. And I know there are a lot of Mid-States, Mid-East fans that would say, what about us? I thought the Mid-South was pretty strong, and I would have just edged the Mid-East a little bit with what the Mid-South did, even though Lindsey Wilson didn't get in. So, Corey, we know we can't see you, but if you're still there, tell us what you think.
Yeah, as far as the Mid-States, Mid-East is concerned, you've got to have St. Francis be very good to make that gauntlet work. Same thing with Concordia. And now with Marion and St. Francis going over to the Midwest, that's going to balance that conference out better. You won't have a clear, better division of that conference anymore. I do agree about the Mid-South. My one gripe about the Mid-South, they've got to play outside themselves a little bit more and do better in that. Lindsey Wilson doesn't make the playoffs because they didn't have a top 25 win. That's why you don't get them in. You lose both opportunities or all 3 opportunities that you had.
Mm-hmm. That includes that Kaiser game that James was talking about.
Yeah.
That turned out to be a big win both directions.
I do say that the Frontier had a banner year. Maybe they ought to have only had 2, but even if you take Montana Tech out, the two that they had left remaining were pretty dang good teams, and that leaves out a Carroll squad that was very good throughout most of the season, and just didn't get it done down the stretch to make it in.
Yeah, my opinion evolved. It did.
Yeah.
James, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I mean, Montana Tech beat College of Idaho 44-35. Like, it's not like they were and College of Idaho made a great run in this postseason. Like, it is tough. So I would say, obviously, Frontier. I don't have an issue with the three. I would have liked to have seen maybe Friends or Mid-America Naz get in, and obviously, I think Ottawa, Arizona would like to have a word in this conversation. But
Yeah.
but going back to why do those schools not get in? Well, because you have a team in Dort that kind of snuck in as the third team in the GPAC. I mean, we kind of know GPAC every year, Northwestern, Morningside. That's not news to anyone. But Dort getting in on a year where Morningside and Northwestern strong at the top. But there's something important about that Dort team in that in the playoffs against Northwestern, they held Northwestern to 7.
Yes.
And no other NAIA team that so Northwestern, they scored 27 to beat Drake. Every other NAIA team, they scored at least 34. When Dort, that defense can hold Northwestern, which we've talked earlier about what Northwestern can do on the offensive side of the ball, the fact that Dort can do that, to me, 7-0 against a team that's in the championship game, GPAC very strong, 1, 2, 3, and who knows next year? You might have team number 4 say, hey, we beat, if you could beat any two of those three, I mean, I think you have a case next year to be in. And I think the GPAC, maybe that's my easy pick for the night. You guys are going to pick Northwestern. I'm just going to pick the GPAC as far as a good performance here in the playoffs.
I'll allow it.
He's just waiting. He was just waiting to allow you, James. That was
Yes.
All right. Yeah, Michael says Dort was an amazing team. You know what? And I would even say this, and I know this is if Dave is still watching, it's not a slight at all, but is Dort the number 2 team out of the GPAC making it in the playoffs, and Morningside the number 3 team because Dort beat them.
That's true.
They both had the same record.
That's true.
Dort also lost to Midland.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked like the Midland game against Northwestern. I was watching that one pretty closely that week because I was like, is Midland for real this year? Like, is this could we have 3-4? And Midland's probably that 4th team in GPAC. But the Midland loss is tough to put them above Morningside.
Corey, you can keep the bat on your shoulder. It's all right. You don't have to swing at it. But
it's batting practice.
We wouldn't see you swing anyway, so that's okay.
Indeed.
All right. Let's throw one more thing out there. We have everybody for just a little bit longer tonight, and we'll try to wrap it up after this. If I can get this screen to share right here, should be able to do it. News this week. News. Good news, everyone. Frontier Conference is expanding here in a couple of years as the Frontier Conference is adding Dickinson State for the 24-25 season. No, excuse me, 25-26 season.
Right. Yeah.
So, Corey, I know you talked about this a little bit. What do you think about this? Good move?
For the Frontier, yeah, absolutely. Dickinson State in recent years, other than the win in the playoffs this year, has not had a whole lot of success against some of your other Frontier teams. So, but at this point, it's a move of necessity, and I really do expect to see very similar moves from Mayville, from Valley City, from all the rest of them that still exist. As the North Star just goes quietly into that good night.
I hope to have a chance to visit with Dr. Crawford, by the way. Great guy. I've enjoyed visiting with him a number of times when he was the commissioner of the KCAC, and we saw expansion in the KCAC under his tenure there. Not just the 2 teams that have football programs, like we've seen Avila come over and Evangel come over from the Heart, but also in some other sports as well with not with associate members. But I'd love to hear his take on this to see if expansion will continue because, Corey, I agree with you. I think it is essential for some of those other schools to say, listen, we've got to find a place to land. James?
Yeah, the North Star is essentially the Pac-12, the Pac-2 of the NAIA. I mean, it's there one day, and it's just going to be gone in a year or two. That's just how it works with the business of college athletics. I think it's a good move for Dickinson State as far as competition, but it's going to be a very long road ahead for them to get back to the playoffs. I feel like they have kind of been the favorites coming out of the North Star every year. But now, man, we named 4 schools in the Frontier that either 3 of them made it to the playoffs. One, Carroll College could have made it. And a team like Rocky Mountain is dangerous up there too. Like it's stacked top to bottom. It's going to be a tough road for them to the playoffs. And then don't forget, they have to make that trip to Arizona Christian now in the Frontier. So, that's a long way for them. And I'm just for a conference game. And, I think I don't know what else you could do. I mean, there's only so many schools up in that northern kind of Canadian border corridor. So, a good move, but boy, they're going to have to really step up in the upcoming years because those Montana teams, they are punishing. And like Corey mentioned, Dickinson State does not have the best record against the Frontier in recent years.
That's outside that 850-mile limit there, right?
Sure is.
Dickinson State to Arizona Christian trip.
I think Arizona Christian every game except for Ottawa, they are required to fly to. I think that's how it works out for them.
Miles calculate differently up in the Northwest. It's different math.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, that's fine.
No, I was just going to take another dig at Corey. I was just going to say, for any of those teams in the Frontier, Morningside is drivable, but, that's neither here nor there.
There's a separate point there that a lot of the North Star teams would have fit nicely into the GPAC except for the requirement that you have to be a Christian college, and most of those remaining North Star teams aren't.
Which Waldorf did go GPAC, if my memory serves me right. But yeah, Mayville, Dickinson State, Valley City, they are left homeless. But
yeah,
and not Dickinson State anymore. They've apparently found a new home.
On a side note, I according to Google, Dickinson, North Carolina. That's where you're going this week, Corey. Sorry, Dickinson, North Dakota to Phoenix, Arizona, 1,380 miles if you're driving it. So there you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of flying in the future of those teams in the Frontier with Arizona and even I haven't done the math on Dickinson State, but even just across Montana and North Dakota, that's a trip.
Or even to Simpson.
Oh, true. That's right. Simpson's coming in. I forgot that. Yeah,
in California. That's I'm looking forward to getting to visit with their coach again. He was great to visit with, and what when we preview 2024, he's going to be good to go. Coach Daniel is just a really nice guy. Okay, let me say this too really quickly about that. I think something that goes overlooked because we talk a lot of football here, and obviously it's a football show tonight, but the Frontier is a small conference outside of football because you talk about football, and it's Frontier and Cascade, and of course now Simpson on the way next year, Arizona Christian as well. But it's a 6-team conference. This will benefit the entirety of the athletics in the conference, bringing in some more teams. If Dickinson State is not alone, and these other teams may come over and make their way over, it's going to be some travel, but it sure will help scheduling because, I mean, your basketball teams, your volleyball teams, softball, baseball, all of them have had to try to come up with some serious non-conference games just to be able to make up the rest of their collective schedules, and that's after a double round robin. So it's going to help them a lot, I think, as a whole in the other things. So, all right, final words here really quickly on Northwestern and Kaiser, and we'll start wrapping up here and give my friends here an opportunity to plug their channels. Corey, sticking with Northwestern, correct?
Yep, sticking with Northwestern. I think it's going to be a close game, and would not be surprised if I'm wrong. My not very bold prediction is that I will once again be typing to the home office that I can't possibly choose an MVP at this point of the game and get it in by the middle of the fourth quarter because there's no possible way I can choose a winning team at that point.
Got it. And James, sticking with Kaiser because the Northwestern pick is boring.
It's very boring. And, Kaiser, like we've talked about, just an incredible ascension to the top of the NAIA football world. And there aren't many schools that have done it as quickly as Kaiser has. And just hats off to the entire team. Coach Soka, everyone, just an amazing season. We are going to stick with Kaiser. We, obviously Northwestern is the favorite, but we see such good things from them all season long, and they're going to take home the championship. And when we come back for the wrap-up show, apologies will be had. But anyway, I'm joking aside. So Champion Sports Network. So we at Champion Sports Network on YouTube. We have started covering NAI basketball. We have a show called Buzzer Beater where we'll look at obviously buzzer beater moments from NAI basketball, but also the news and analysis. We have created a rating. Well, we'll see if we can keep Joey off his soapbox, but we've created a rating for all of the teams in the NAIA. In our show that we had earlier this week, we had on coaches and sports information directors from across the NAIA talking about ratings, how the NAIA does ratings versus polls rankings. Really, those ratings are actually still just fancy, more complicated rankings, I would say, but that's neither here nor there. But we actually, at Champion Sports Network, we have something called the CSPI, which is a rating. We look at all the teams, we have an algorithm, we evaluate the teams, and we have a number. So, Joey, of course, is probably a big fan of it just because it is a rating and it's properly called one.
Rating, yes. Appropriately named.
But yes, if you could give us a subscribe on Champion Sports Network. If you're at all interested in NAI basketball, we'll have some more content and interviews coming up after the new year.
All right. And Michael, I was thinking of Michael. I'll put this up here really quickly because I'm sticking with this. Michael's not going to be surprised if you're wrong, Corey, so he's not going to be surprised if I'm wrong. I'm not keeping that up there for very long, but Michael staying with us. Corey, where do we find you? Other than if your camera works, where do we find you?
Yeah, that's true too. You can find me pretty much everywhere, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter /X, Threads, at NAIA Fball. That's where I will be.
Threads? What are you, the fabric section of Walmart? What do you mean?
Hey
Threads?
man, if Twitter ever goes down in a blaze of glory, I know where I'm going afterwards.
Twitter is gone and X marks the spot. Just accept it. It's X now.
Well,
Never.
I'm not accepting it just yet. It's still Twitter as far as I'm concerned. And you can find us there, Midwest Sportsnet, on Twitter. And we do have some URLs too. We have some websites out there. But what I appreciate everyone watching tonight. So shout out to James, to Michael. Dave stopped by tonight. Also, if you're watching the replay, first off, if you watch the live stream and you're still with us, that is so cool. If you're watching the replay and you're still watching us, you're a trooper. And I really appreciate you a lot. So I encourage you, please subscribe. Please like the video. That helps a lot. And honestly, at this point, please watch a few more hours before the end of 2023. That would be helpful for the channel a lot. And we're gonna hit that milestone. I think we're gonna hit that milestone. So we're excited about that. Look, it's been a blast. I always enjoy speaking with my friends from across the country. One of these days, well, you know what? I'm sorry, Corey. I've had a chance to work with James on site with him more than once. So we've actually physically met. But Corey, one of these days,
you'll get down to Florida. It'll be all right.
We'll do that. But in the meantime, thanks to everybody for watching tonight. And on Saturday, I believe it's on Saturday because I'll be on the road to Missouri State tomorrow.
Yeah, you'll be calling a game?
Picking up one of the daughters. I may stop by Evangel. Who knows? And then Saturday, and I think I'm going to do it on Saturday. So, guys, if there were a bowl season in the NAI, what would it look like? And I've saved this one for a few days, so I may throw this one out there Saturday night. Corey, you'll already be on flight. Who knows? You may want to watch that on flight. But if there were a bowl season, because it's bowl season now, and Florida State's going to play in the bowl game, possibly. Who knows? We don't even know if that's going to happen or not.
Will they be in the Pop-Tarts Bowl or the San Diego Community Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl? It's really, I'm not sure which one they're in. But
wow. Well, I'm going to pitch to you what I think the 2023 NAI bowl season would look like, and I'm keeping teams within their 850-mile limit just to let you know. What would it look like if there were a bowl season in the NAI?
And what would they be named?
I even have that too. We're good.
Pizza Ranch Bowl.
Don't have logos, but yes. Oh, no, right there in the man. I'm telling you what, that would be great. I may change one of the names right now. Have to find out.
So to be clear, you are asking us what we think the bowl season would look like?
I'm just telling you what I think it is.
Okay.
If you want to chime in on Saturday, please feel free.
Okay. Yeah. Whoa.
All right. Sounds fun. Michael's going to listen. Jake's on board. Hey, you guys. Oh, and Michael, thank you very much. Enjoyed both the coaches. It was great to have the coaches on here.
Yes.
That's a lot of fun, and I appreciate both of them coming on. So we had, if you haven't watched already, Coach Sosha and Coach McCarty on the channel as well. All right, for Corey Thorpe and for James Lex, Corey of NAIA Football, James of the Champion Sports Network, I'm Joey McWilliams. Shout out to everyone. It's going to be fun watching football on Monday, and I look forward to that. And we will have a wrap-up football show. Oh, and by the way, Midwest Sports Net is not limited to just football. We have basketball on the way, but you know what? We've had a lot of football fun, so we're going to stick with it to the very, very end. And we'll be talking some basketball probably about the time that Buzzer Beater comes back on again. So we'll do that as well. Thank you, everyone, for watching tonight. God bless you all. Merry Christmas, and let's watch one more really cool game of NAIA football this season. Have a great night.